John, welcome to the InsurTechTalk. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Gillett, for having me here today.
So, we always need to start with a little bit of origin story and background story, but we'll actually start with a story about your background. A Stanford helmet, and is that a GI Joe? What do you have there?
Yeah, no, I've got all kinds of stuff back here. I actually kind of started constructing this during COVID, and I was in my house and everybody was on Zoom, and so I thought it'd be kind of fun to show off a little bit of my family and my things. So yeah, Stanford helmet. That's actually an Orange Bowl commemorative helmet from the last time that Stanford's football team was competitive, and it gives me hope that we can be good again. And then the GI Joe is a 10th Mountain Division commemorative GI Joe. 10th Mountain Division were they actually came back after World War II, and they founded a lot of the ski resorts, including Aspen, where I am today. So kind of an inspiration as well.
So they fought World War II in the Alps
in
and
the
everywhere.
Alps. Yeah, against the Nazis in the Alps. Very inspirational story.
And I need to ask about the fender that you have behind you.
Yeah, I played, I think like you, I played a lot when I was a kid, high school, played in the band in high school, played in a band in college, and now just trying to find the time to pick it up again. And
well, I try. I'm far from being as mediocre as I used to be. Now I'm just bad. But again, I think it has a direct correlation, not a causality, but most definitely correlation with how long my hair was when I was in high school.
Oh yeah.
But I still wear black, well, in this case, black shirt. Because, by the way, I more and more wear. It's funny because I'm looking at the different podcasts. So I dress up, or I will have a black tee, and basically all the ChatGPTs were like, stick to one t-shirt, have a black t-shirt, because then people cannot really know when the episode was recorded, and it will look uniform.
Yes.
And then it's like, yeah, but I keep changing the watches and the different things, so it doesn't really work. But we are here to talk about you and not behind the scenes and of how you produce a podcast. Let's start with, the basic stuff. It's who is John? What are you working on? And you are based in Aspen, Colorado.
Yes.
Which is not really, the most InsurTech foundry or insurance kind of operation center. How does living in the mountains shape how you think about building a company?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, not exactly the InsurTech hotbed, right? Aspen, Colorado. No. Although we do have a lot of people who come here for various reasons at various times. I built an agency, a private client, high net worth agency, so it probably made a lot more sense when I was running that. But we do have a lot of people here. We've got the Intersect Art Fair here in a couple weeks. And so some of the folks from some of the carriers and MGAs will be out here for that, and which ties into what we do. So there's a little bit of crossover, but I think it really is kind of an indication of what you can do now with all these technologies, right? With video conferencing, and of course we all now are completely connected through all of our tools online. So we've got folks all over North America on the team, and we can connect and collaborate with each other. So it's just me here in Aspen, but I think it's great. It like I said, a lot of folks come here from the carriers and from some of the major brokers just to participate in some of the things that we have here in Aspen.
Video conferencing. This is such a 2020 of you.
Right.
But
I know.
But yeah, I can see people from different carriers coming to Aspen. Off season, or on season, or off season to hike. I can see that happen.
Yeah.
Actually, if we are doing different times and stuff like that, you started your career, kind of your entrepreneurial career, 98.
Yeah.
It was pre-bubble, or no, yeah, pre-bubble burst. So
yeah, very much
height of like the web. Oh my God, will this internet thingy will catch up? This
Yeah.
is when, yeah, this is when you launch your first car insurance agency. Um, what, I know it's been a few days, like 20, nearly 30 years ago.
My gosh.
Wh- What
Yeah.
made you think that, it's possible? Because no one done it back then.
Yeah. I'm going to take you all the way back. I
Yeah,
haven't
that's
told
how
this
I
story.
started 30 years.
I'm gonna,
Let's
I'm
do
gonna,
it.
I haven't told this story in quite a long time, so I'm gonna take you all the way back. So
Hey, I
I
said
was,
origin story.
there you go. And so I was actually, I was at Stanford in the mid '90s, and again, I don't know, people know the whole history of the internet and the web, but Stanford was very, very much at the center of things in the mid '90s. And just to give you a sense of it, among other things, so I started using the web in '94 with Mosaic,
Oh yeah, we
right?
had it in, yeah.
Yeah,
We
and
just
with
started to get it in high school. I was in high school back then.
yeah, and so it was just coming online, and Stanford was really the epicenter. Cisco Systems basically built the network at Stanford. And then, among other things, I used Yahoo on a Stanford server from Terman back then. And I always joke about it, like, gosh, if I'd have just walked, it was 100 yards from where my dorm room was. Why didn't I just walk over and say, David, Jerry, can I get you coffee? Something, right? But I was obsessed with it. 94, 95. I was an econ major of all things. I wasn't smart enough to be. I was a programmer in high school, but at the time, this is before 20% of the Stanford kids or whatever major in what they call CS now. But at the time, like, to be in CS, you had to be a real programmer. You had to be developing languages and stuff. So I
Hmm.
kind of stepped down to econ, but I was obsessed with the web, and so I was interviewing with the management consulting firms and the banks, iBanks, and the almost universal reaction from all of them was, "Okay, nerd boy, why don't you just, why don't you tell me more about CB radio and all the other stupid, tech things that you're interested in?" Really, a kind of shocking lack of interest across the board in the business community and the web at the time. But I ended up hooking up with a management consulting firm, getting hired by a management consulting firm, which is now called Oliver Wyman, and it was owned by Marsh. So I kind of got dragged unwillingly into the insurance industry back then, and did a ton of work with Fireman's Fund, with Prudential, with CNA, and Fireman's Fund. And so that's how I got into insurance. Kind of loved it, was kind of fascinated by it. I loved all the data. But I also saw, especially, I can talk about the fund because they don't exist anymore, right? So, especially Fireman's Fund, it was like, I was like blown away at how it all worked, and just thought that, gosh, a lot of this could be done more efficiently. Their operating system, I always like, at my trivia question, the operating system they used at Fireman's Fund was OS2 Warp, which most people probably never heard of. It was IBM's proprietary operating system. Anyway, so kind of saw that in the inside. And then a brief detour at Oracle, I got a call from a friend of a friend, and he said, "I hear you know a lot about insurance." And I was at Oracle at the time, and I was 25, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know, I guess for a 25-year-old." And he said, "Well, I just got $1 million from SoftBank, and they want to form an online version of Geico. What do you think?" And I was like, "Oh, that sounds pretty interesting." So I went to my boss at Oracle, who, by the way, had shot down every stupid idea any of my friends had brought to me. And she said, "Oh, that's actually something that's pretty interesting. You should talk to these guys." So that's how I became the co-founder of a company called eCoverage, which was backed by SoftBank and Accel and RRE Ventures. And our mandate was literally build an online version of Geico. That was the entire instruction set. And in about 11 months, we issued our first policy. And so we actually built a full stack, what the kids today call a full stack carrier, in 1998. Except there was no Amazon Web Services. We had to build our own racks. There was no anything. It was just us constructing an insurance company from scratch, and we did that in 11 months. So yeah, that we launched that. We were the first startup to sell car insurance online in 1999. rode a huge wave. We were a little slow in getting our Series C done, and so we like everyone else ran out of money. We sold it to General Motors, and it became GMAC Insurance Online in 2001, and that kind of kicked off the second part of my career. I'll go a little faster through the rest of it.
So allow me to interrupt you so I can actually, ask the questions.
Yeah.
No, we are going to go to step 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
Actually, 5, is it now or is it the next one? But so you already kind of answered that question. It's like, what happened when the .com bubble burst?
Yeah.
Were you out of money? That's your Series C that you didn't manage to raise, or?
Yeah. So we literally started, we were actually trying to raise 50 in 1999. And so we were doing it as a private placement. We had Solomon Smith Barney working on our private placement, our Series C. Unfortunately, we kicked it off in December of 1999. And I remember distinctly getting calls from our board. We had this amazing board that was getting calls from our board and saying, guys, we're getting, the wind's starting to blow the wrong way. And then the Barron's article came out, which I think was in March or April of 2000. And I don't think people realize today how it was like a light switch turned off. That we were just massive inbound activity, and we were by far the leader in the online insurance space in 99 and early 2000, and the light switch turned off, and there was no funding for basically the folks who had just raised managed to get out of it, but no one else did. And so we then pivoted to trying to find an acquisition, make an acquisition happen, and we ended up doing that with General Motors, and so we at least the technology lived on and became that platform, and has subsequently been sold to others. But
and you were what, 27, 28 at that point?
Yeah, 27 in 2000. Yeah.
How did that shape the rest of your career? What's like the key experience or lesson that you had? I know it's been a few days, but we all have kind of scars and moments of that we are very proud of.
Yeah, it was, God, it shaped me in a lot of ways. I mean, among other things, it showed what was possible, right? I mean, I was one of the few people at the time who knew for certain that that this was it, that people were going to buy insurance online, and that this was going to be the major distribution channel for insurance, for personal insurance going forward. And so I had kind of a piece of knowledge that a lot of people didn't have, and I knew how it was going to happen. We were the first. We were the second car insurance advertiser on Google. So this is before AdWords existed. I'm one of the few people you'll ever meet who bought a Google search ad on a CPM basis. Not on a CPC basis, on a CPM basis. I did an ad buy with Google on an IO. Progressive was first, and then it was us. And so I knew what search was going to be. I knew exactly how that was going to shake out, and just the, having been through that, it taught me a lot, but it kind of gave me this experience of, hey, you can have something that looks like it's really, really working, because it was, have it fail and then try again, and not be too wrapped up in what the outcome is.
So basically, that's a great segue to talk about sure hits and how you spent your time in the 2000s.
Yeah, so sure hits. So the next story is I connected with a really interesting guy named John Jones. And John was running a search agency, right? SEO, PPC, and all that. And he was doing a lot of work with General Motors, GMAC Insurance. I kind of came on as a consultant for those, and we combined our efforts. So we were working with GMAC, and so this would have been in the early to mid 2000s. And we did all their media buying, all their SEO, all of it between the two of us. And the way that came about is our client said to us, hey, they only operate in about 30, 35 states. He said, in those states that we don't do business in, I'd like to monetize that traffic. Do you guys know the folks at Geico and Progressive and all the media buyers? And I was like, yeah, of course we do. And I said, yeah, we can, get some ads up on those pages and get them redirected over to those companies. And his name's Kevin Keller. Kevin said, why don't you have them bid for it? I was like, oh, John and I are like, that's a good idea. And so we basically built this platform originally to sell off the excess traffic from their website. But then we thought, we should just make this a JavaScript plugin and make it so you can drop it on any site. And that was the origin of what they now call a click wall. And so that was the basis of it. And so we invented that, what's become a very, very large market now between Media Alpha and QuinStreet. We ended up selling the business to QuinStreet a few years later. Had an incredible ride there, incredible growth. Sold it to QuinStreet, so QuinStreet, Media Alpha. Now there's a couple others that do it as well, but these click walls have become an extraordinary business, and so that really was big turning point. It was very successful. It was a bootstrapped company. We had a great exit. Quinn was great to us. I ran their insurance division for a couple of years and then retired briefly after that for a bit.
That was kind of went out for hiatus. It's everyone, there is a point after an exit that you go like, yeah, what do I do next?
Yeah, you got to take a little break. And yeah, exactly. And so I did that.
It doesn't last long. That's the thing.
No.
You imagine that you're going to sit by the pool with a mojito or by a white beach with the Zen, but it's how long can you do that?
Yeah.
Nowadays,
right.
Even in my fantasies, I don't see myself sitting and reading a book. I don't have time for a book. I would rather listen to an audiobook and run on the mountains while my knees allow me to do that.
It's fun to build things. I realize
it is.
It is fun. Yeah. I could be building whatever,
It's building and talking to people. People ask me,
yes.
I was talking to a guy that I'm sure that you know as well in the industry, and he's like, hey, what would be if I would give you an offer to join? What would be your perfect job? It's like, I would love to do what I'm doing today under XYZ conditions. And why? Because I solve problems, I build things, I hurdle cats, I make things, I create things that never happen. It's my internal engineer, and I talk with a lot of people.
Yes.
And it's so much fun. And then there are, quiet times that I need to, to build that. Even today, it's a little bit different than when I used to write code, but we build something that happens, right? It's you deliver something. But sorry, that's a little too much about me. Going back to your stuff, and it's a little bit of a touchy subject.
Yeah.
When every time we talk about lead generation in the industry, people have like a small itch because sometimes it doesn't smell right. It has a complicated reputation.
Mm-hmm.
How come? Why does it cause problems to all kinds of different companies?
Lead generation?
Yeah.
That's a complicated question. I think
I know.
Yeah.
That's why I asked it.
Yeah. I guess I have the bird's eye view there, right? I think it's a couple different things. I think one is I'm gonna kind of talk on both sides of this a little bit. Is on the one hand, people don't understand. People don't understand who are in the industry what the perspective of a normal person, a normal insurance consumer, a normal insurance buyer. And what they don't know, like if you actually talk to a normal insurance buyer and you're in the industry, I think you'd be shocked at what they do and do not know about the industry. And so I remember with SureHits even, SureHits originally all we did was we just said, okay, what product are you looking for? Car, home, health, life, and what zip code are you in, right? And then we would have people bid on that basis. And I'd have people come up to me and like, this doesn't provide any value. What do you like? Why wouldn't they just go to Google? And I'd say, I bet if you asked 100 people, does Geico sell health insurance? 50 of them would say yes, right? And they have no idea even where to begin looking. And so you type in insurance in Google and you get all these results, especially then. I mean, Google, obviously, now it's AI. It's a completely different story now. But we're talking about 20 years ago. And it even just getting somebody close to the finish line, a consumer, where you're saying, okay, here are the 5 people that you should that actively have, again, they're only going to bid because they have a good website that's going to convert well, right? All of those things. Hal Varian, this kind of legendary economist who worked for Google for a long time, gave this kind of spirited defense of AdWords and why their algorithm actually produces a really good consumer experience, even though it's really just optimizing in a microeconomic sense, it's optimizing yield for Google, and why that's beneficial for consumers. Well, we obviously had a very similar approach, and so by that yield optimization, you're also delivering the consumer to someone who can help them and who has a really good website and has really good throughput. So see, I'm kind of passionate about like this. It actually makes a lot of sense and is really good for everybody involved in the ecosystem. That's all true. What's also true is that lead gen, and this kind of gets to the heart of your question, attracts a lot of really bad people because they can make some easy money quickly before everyone finds out what kind of scam they're running. And so just one kind of funny story is, SureHits originally, we did not only insurance, but we also did mortgages. And so we had a mortgage marketplace. And in 2007, 2008, we launched in 2005. Jon and I were like starting to get the willies about the mortgage market. We had some people kind of slow paying us and things like that. And we ended up basically telling all the mortgage people, look, you need to do massive prepayments because we're not giving you credit. And some of the second biggest mortgage originator in the country at the time said some really mean things to me when I laid down the law on that. But what was funny about it is when that mortgage market collapsed, a ton of the people that were in mortgage lead gen came over to insurance, and a lot of them were just scammers. They were just bad people. And so there is a lot of that. And I think it is because, you can make some easy money in lead gen and all that, and people do. And I don't know, I think it attracts some bad people. Frankly, on the other side too, the TCPA, there's the entire cottage industry of people who file false TCPA complaints and things like that. I mean, there's, I don't know, we could go deep into that, but
well,
yeah,
there are always bad actors in different industries, and I think
right.
that one of the things that are challenging with the lead gen, it's very hard to see if you don't really have the right control and monitoring in place. It's very hard to know what's going on because they
Yes,
tell you,
exactly.
you're going to give
Yeah,
me a budget of
right.
$100,000, whatever that may be, and I'm going to deliver something for you. And are they going to deliver? They are not going to deliver. Are they going to use all kinds of stale leads, warm leads, hot leads, recycle leads, whatever type of thing that they may or may not. Part of it will be good. Most of it will going to be junk. And you're just frustration. And what I found within the fraudster, so they will do one cut and run away and disappear, or if they are okay and kind of where you're stepping already in your mindset, there is already a misalignment of the expectations because
Yes.
you can't really open the hood and see what's going on. So you're always suspicious about where's my money going? It's like, how much money am I spending and what am I getting back?
Yes.
Because there is a certain unknown. And when you go into the different KPIs are a little bit annoying. They are already, what are we doing? CPAs, CPC, CPPs. What are we actually clicking and how am I being invoiced on? But yeah, it's, and then you have other stuff as the fraudsters, etc.
Yes.
Okay. Well, as I said, it's a complicated question that a lot of people don't know what to do, and then it's like, I'll just give it to Google, and then they bid $70
Right.
on a click for car insurance. So what's next? We are 25 minutes in, and we are still in the origin story. I know, but there is so much to talk about.
Right.
What's the next step? So, you sold it to Queen Street.
Yeah, I retired for a while. I started a social media company called This or That Media. It became very popular with 13, 15-year-old girls in Commonwealth countries. Very difficult to monetize. We were very early in one direction, very hard to monetize.
Lip gloss. That's the way. Lip gloss.
Yeah. So I had a non-compete. So I was honoring my non-compete and building a very unprofitable social media company. But anyway, so from there, I ended up starting a high net worth online insurance broker called Kelly Klee. And the origin story for that is after I sold SureHits, had a little bit of money and I wanted to get a Chubb policy. And so I started calling brokers in Denver, and very hard to get someone to call me back.
Were you already in Aspen?
No, I was in Denver still.
Oh.
I was in Denver still, had a place up in the mountains, but I still lived in Denver. And I finally get somebody to call me back, and I start going through the process, and I realized that they had no technology. I realized that they were just asking me questions, and it took about 6 weeks for me to get onboarded. 6 weeks. And the only reason it took 6 weeks and not 6 months was that I called about every 3 days and said, where is it? Why is this not done? And my agent would always say, there was a couple things I didn't ask you, right? Your house is in an LLC. Why didn't you say, why didn't you tell me? I didn't know it mattered, right? And so I kind of realized, again, I'd been in insurance technology for my whole career. I was like, there's a core piece of technology missing here. And so I kind of stuck in the back of my mind, and we ended up building this agency, Kelly Klee, and there was basically two theses. One thesis was the insurance brokers, personal lines insurance brokers, had a huge technology gap, which turned out to be 1,000% true. And the second one was that you could do direct marketing. You could actually direct market high-end private client insurance, which also turned out to be true, but expensive and difficult to scale. So we did that for about 5 years. We ended up selling the agency a couple of years ago to one of the roll-ups, Foundation Risk Partners, great company, and treated us very well. And we sold the agency, but we kept the technology. So the technology that we built and used for 5 years at that agency became my new venture, Modern Metric. And so Modern Metric is a software company that is focused on technology for brokers. And it really is, our tagline is growth through experience. So our experience, but also just consumer experience, delivering a really superior consumer experience for the clients of private client brokers, and everything you need to do to make that happen.
And that should be the main topic of today's talk, which we are already reaching the end of the episode, but finally we reach it. Although I still have a few questions about, your past life, which is, so Kelly Klee or Kelly Lee?
Kelly Klee. Yeah, my partner.
You do pronounce the K. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. So that was your third or fourth exit?
I don't even. I've lost track. Third, I guess. Third.
Yeah, because the social media for girls that was.
Yeah, that actually turned into something else.
Okay, no.
Yeah.
So we already established that you are one of the original OGs of insurance or InsurTech. a third exit,
Yeah.
and now you're launching you launched Modern Metric, and that's startup number 5, basically.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Now what?
Now
Now
what?
what I know that you started to describe Modern Metric.
Yeah.
What is it,
Yes.
and why people need it? And
Yeah.
I
So in what's interesting is give you a little bit of background. So as you said, I'd been in lead gen, for my career up to that point in insurance. So what's interesting is for those who don't know, I think I would think a lot of your viewers and listeners would know. There's kind of two very different markets in personal insurance. One market is the direct to consumer market, which is State Farm, Allstate, Geico, Farmers. They're all in the direct to consumer market, right? Like Geico has call centers and websites. State Farm has agents that are distributed. It's the same model, right? They have one product, their product, direct to consumer. And then you have the independent agency channel. And the independent agency channel is multiple carriers, different carriers that you would have direct, but multiple carriers. And the independent agent is essentially serving as the sales and service arm for those carriers. And so, very different model. What's interesting is the direct-to-consumer model, because they're direct-to-consumer, they actually have built really kind of incredible technologies they were very progressive in Geico, were very early in the web. Later, Allstate, State Farm, and Farmers came on. They built really great technologies for their agents. State Farm has a great system for their agents that they've built because they're dealing directly with consumers. None of that got over into the independent agency land. And to the extent that it did, there was some penetration with kind of the small mom and pops and things like that. But when you talk about the big brokers, the multi-billion-dollar brokers especially, but really all the largest brokers, they have agency management systems. And the agency management systems they largely have two purposes. One is accounting. So they download all the policies into those systems. And the second is they're kind of they call them, a system of record. So that's where they're going to drop in all of the documents and emails and things like that, so that if there's ever an E&O claim or anything comes back to bite them later, there's a system that kind of has all of the communications and things like that. Fine, great, absolutely needed. But those systems they're not something that a person would want to use to actually interact with a client, right? So they're not client facing in the sense that you can't share them with your client. You wouldn't. I mean, they look like Windows 95, right? But whatever, it doesn't matter. They're great. They're for the back end, they're back office systems. But there's this whole missing layer that exists in the mass market. State Farm, Allstate, Farmers, those folks have it, but doesn't exist in the high end, in the private client side, because I don't know, it never got built, right? I actually do know the answer, and the answer is really scale. That a lot of the scale that's happened in the distribution side, the insurance brokerage side, that scale really got built in the last 20, 30 years with all the roll-ups, right? All the acquisitions that happened. So, Marsh, Chubb, Willis, Aon, they've bought all these companies, and they've gotten to a scale now, and now they have professional IT departments that are actually looking at enterprise software and solutions for their teams. They're trying to standardize operations across, scores of different offices and things like that. So that market exists now, whereas 30 years ago, it was really just, whatever happens in the agency happens. And there wasn't that infrastructure, that tech infrastructure that really existed across all that. So we built that, like I said, we built this software originally for ourselves, and now we offer it to the large, the midsize and large brokers. And the idea is that this is where a personal lines private client broker, actually, this is their workstation. right? So they have to use the AMS because that's the system of record. Some of them, very few actually, use a CRM of one kind or another, a Salesforce or a HubSpot or Pipedrive, something like that. But really, this is where they do their work. This is where they collect all of the data to build a dossier on their client. This is where they manage the quoting process, and this is how they produce proposals. So this is where they actually deliver for the client. They do that within Modern Metric, within Discover.
Okay, I will need to give a shout out to Jason Cass that I just talked with him. He was a guest on the podcast at least twice, if not three times. He's a very loud voice in the indie part of the industry. And he's building very interesting elements on that tech for the indie agents. And also, I had a guest recently, a couple of episodes ago, Sherry Martinen. I hope I pronounce her last name correctly. And she also brought up the AMS and lack of integration with the CRM, and the different kind of, not the chokeholds, but bumps in the road in order to integrate even a chord and to have the ability to cancel, to change something. And that everything you're kind of like, you have the two main providers, and then you have a few other smaller ones, but you can't do much. And that's kind of like the big gap. You have solutions, but not as famous as, which, like everything else in life, once you have a challenge, someone will rise up and try to provide the solution.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, they are. I mean, our big thing is, I hope they would never see us as any threat to them. That what they do, is needed, and
you're talking about Applied and all these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not a challenge. Their modus operandi is, okay, you're a challenger, let's buy you out.
Yeah, I mean, we look at it as a different layer, right?
But they changed. They kind of changed their mentality in terms of, we need to change it. They started to fill it with AI, and I think I have no idea. I don't have, but what I assume is that, like everyone else, they see AI. We need to follow that buzzword as well. And they are trying to adopt and to bring fresh concept instead in terms of their mindset and how they approach other technology and adapt and change their core products as well.
Yeah. I think when it comes I think the areas where they could really be helped by AI, or they could help their clients with AI tools, is in analytics. I mean, AI is, when I think of the biggest disruption to software with AI, it's analytics, it's analytic tools, because having a standardized set of reporting tools replaced by an LLM where you can just ask it, like, hey, I want to know what, tell me about all the clients that non-renewed and what are their similarities and things like that. Like, that's a great use of an LLM. Where the LLMs and where the AI tools don't help a lot is in workflow. And so it's actually funny. I was having a really interesting conversation with a VC earlier this week, and I think what's interesting is people like you and me, the LLMs help a lot with workflow. So investors, C-suite and all that, because we can build something totally custom for ourselves that automates a lot of our personal workflow, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But that doesn't scale. And so if you're talking about a broker that has 500 people in private client, and those 500 people have to get up every day, go to work, and deal with actual live clients that are, or prospects that they want to close that day, and they need to crank out proposals, they need to crank out quotes, they need to figure out, I need to understand this person's, $12 million fine art schedule. You do not want them building their own workflow in an LLM.
And by the way, that's actually the key of why we're going to, because of AI, and people chew that topic so many times. But
yes.
So my kind of take on that, it's going to introduce more jobs, different jobs. People now, we see a lot of people being fired, but at the same time, if you want to have skills and you are not up to it, you don't know how to build the artifacts or really use Claude or whatever to customize your workflow, there are people and companies that will do it for you. Part of them will do it specifically for your SMB. Part of them will do it at scale so it will work for everyone. It's the same thing that we saw with mobile. When mobile started, 2009, 8, then 2010, when actually it started to be more and more popular, you had more companies trying to figure out how can we do like the hybrid. It's a web, and don't forget, back then it wasn't Meta, it was Facebook that tried to push their own non-native structure. So you had all these different combinations that really try to figure out where they are and created new industries and sub-industries, and as a result, new types of job. People now are talking about, between maximizing tokens, minimizing token usage, optimizing token usage. The buzzword that will rule this year is still out there. The judges are still out. We don't know yet how it is going to be because it's changing so rapidly. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, that's we kind of look at it as they're basically, it's funny because we have a ringside seat. One of our clients has an enterprise license to Claude.
Mm-hmm.
And so we hear all the time, like, here are the things they're doing with that. And then, some of the users that use our platform, they all also obviously do things in Claude and all that. So we really have kind of a ringside seat as to how individuals are solving their individual problems with the LLMs versus using a software platform. And like I said, I think a lot of what it comes down to is we had one of our clients this week who that we're working with, and she said, no, this is where, when I come to work every day, I log into Discover, and this is where I work. And I might do one-off things in Claude. I might have this thing here and there, but I need a place where I can come in every day and see everything and see what needs to be done. And that, I have a platform that has workflow that I can go through. And so I like that. And I think that really is kind of I think that really is the way to think about where the LLMs play versus where enterprise software plays. And, those things will change. The frontiers of that will change. But I think that's kind of what it boils down to. And then, of course, we've, like others, we've baked the AI so deeply into our platform that in one way to think about our platform is it's a bunch of workflow with a lot of coding. That's essentially, what it is. And so, I think what you're going to see more and more of is specialization. So like for us, we've seen, gosh, I would guess now that we're approaching 100,000 documents that are specifically in the private client market. So deck pages, policy forms, accord forms, driver's license, things, but in the private client market. So, an art schedule, we had an art schedule that was 100 pages long of art. So imagine that.
Wow.
And so I mean, again, I don't think I have to guess. Modern Metric has by far the best document ingestion and data modeling of anyone in private client, and our lead just extends because we have all these users and they keep uploading documents, and our AI keeps getting better.
No, you
So
gave me an idea. I need to
Mhm.
bring someone from Accord. I had someone from Accord, what's his name? Tashiro. That was a few years ago.
Mhm.
But that will be very interesting. Accord as a standard, as a non-profit that costs a lot of money
Yeah,
to use, how AI and even half a generation earlier, APIs and customization of APIs by everyone,
yeah,
how that impacts and how they see the future within the industry is kind of as the standard of
yes,
XML forms,
right,
because they can be the accelerant or they can be the impediment of the industry.
yeah, right.
Um, no, but that's an idea. Let's two more questions.
All right.
So because sadly we are running out of
I
time.
know, it's been
I
fun,
know.
but yeah,
Listen, that's a problem. I'm trying to keep it short, and then every time it's like, okay, we need like an after episode kind of episode,
yeah, we need
because there
the
are conversations like, okay, let's do it,
yeah,
short and sweet, under at least 45 minutes, and then you go like, okay, let's have like 2 more hours, light the cigars, and but again, I don't have Joe Rogan's budget.
yeah,
So it's a little bit of challenge flying people over or have like a bigger studio. So we talked about, you mentioned specializing and basically customizing the different workflow, that, where it is. And the two open questions there or item will be, for AI, where does it fit the high net worth? So
mhm,
that will be a good example. And where does it sit with the independent agents, which is kind of the
yeah.
same question.
Yeah, so the way we look at it is there's two different areas of AI that are important, at least important for us and our product, and we think for our clients. One is data aggregation, ingestion, however you want to say it. So, like I said, our platform, you can think of it a broker. This is true for all kinds of insurance brokers, but again, in our space in private client, they're like a detective. They're like a detective. They need to find data from all kinds of different sources, right? So you'd have things only the client knows, things that their financial advisor knows, their assistant, all the documents that they have, so all the deck pages and their driver's license, all those things, third party data. So we bring in third party assessor data. And so part of what the LLM does, our custom system does, is brings all that together. We have a proprietary data model, the Discover data model. It brings all that data together. It dedupes it. It organizes all of that data and then brings it into a user interface so that a human can actually work with it, right? So and there's various forms of that, and so we can do that. We push quotes into a proposal document, and so all of those things. But that's all kind of one thing, which is organizing, ingesting, and organizing data, right? And so again, the more reps you have in a specialized space, in our case, private client, you just develop an insurmountable lead, because somebody who's trying to do that for everything in insurance, they'll see 1/1000th of the documents that we see. The other side of it, though, is analysis, right? Is using AI for analysis, and that can come in a lot of different flavors. Underwriting guidelines, all the carriers promote underwriting guidelines, and you'll have those underwriting guidelines literally sit on like a website, or they in PDFs. And so
Oh,
imagine,
oh, oh, oh. Yeah, there is now a lawsuit, Corgi versus Vouch. But yes, please continue.
yeah. I'll give you an example. I should it's it all their agencies have it. So Chubb has underwriting guidelines for the state of New York, and they're actually kind of amazing. I would say like they're one of the most impressive works of human engineering, that their underwriting guidelines, they sit in these tables, and the tables are such that it's like a series of nested if-then statements. Like if you're in this county, if you're within 3 miles of the coast, if you're on Long Island, all these things. And I've joked about it. Like you really need like 130 IQ to really, really get it. But an LLM can look at this and say, oh, I can just look at all the data and tell you whether or not it violates any of those rules or not. And so that, or even just, we have this thing called Proofreader that looks at a proposal and says, gosh, this is a $10 million house. Why does it have a $1,000 deductible, right? This person is wasting money. They should be self-insuring the first, 20,000. So things like that, where it's not replacing the human, it's making them superhuman by giving them guidance across this account. And these accounts, Gillette, are very complicated. And the LLM can look at the whole thing holistically and say, hey, here are some things you may have missed. So that's the analysis side of it. And I think that's really where we're kind of pushing very hard right now.
Jon, sadly, we are running out of time. So let me ask you the last question that I'm asking everyone. What is something the insurance industry should be talking about more that is not talking about enough?
I think it's really about getting operational excellence. Operational excellence. Right now, the industry.
What does it mean?
What it means is that you've had a lot of, if I look at, again, my neck of the woods, which is private client, you have extraordinarily smart, dedicated people who get it done because they care and they're smart and they're well trained, right? That's how they make it work. What they don't have is the kind of operational infrastructure of that. You think about like a Costco or an Amazon or all these companies that just have these incredible FedEx logistics. And that comes from defined, repeatable process that you can improve upon, that you can then kind of supercharge these hardworking, dedicated, smart people that you have. So you end up with a lot of wasted time and effort on things that are not really delivering for the customer. I always say to people, the secret, I know you got to go, the secret to what makes our platform really deliver, it isn't actually all the AI tools and all those things, it's standardizing the process. And that actually is, and again, it's not just with our software, it's across the board. Is when you've rolled up all these companies, it's getting on the same page and doing things in a repeatable, improvable fashion that really the industry doesn't talk nearly enough.
Well, I can open that topic. Oh, that's a different topic. That will be like 2 other episodes. Okay, but sadly, that will be for 2 other episodes.
Yes.
Jon, thank you very, very much for joining me today. It was a pleasure talking with you. Short,
Gillard,
but...
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.